Hey guys, what's up? It's Rutgers Pokemon here. It's Kayla, it's your host, whatever. Yeah, we're just gonna kind of jump right into it. This is PRs. I have a special guest today. I am joined by six ice types himself, the GOAT, Dennis, coach of the Konikoni Cats.
Yes, hi. I was also the president of the Rutgers Pokemon Club for a bit and competitive director for 2 years or whatever. So that's also my contribution here, even though I live nowhere close to Rutgers right now.
Yeah, so without further ado, like, sub, and whatever, and we are gonna get right into this draft. PR.
Anyways, let's talk about Pokemon.
Oh my god. Alright.
Talk about the sequel to 6 Ice types, 12 bug
types. Oh my god. This team.
So this was our. We're doing this, to be clear, we're doing this in worst to best order.
Yeah.
This was, I think, basically everybody's worst ranked team.
No, yeah.
Yeah, it was everyone's worst ranked team.
It's the only team we all got the same spot on. So, yeah.
And like, okay, I want to start with the positives. I think Yanmega's a great Pokemon. I'm gonna be saying top X Pokemon, and the X is like 5 to 10. Like, I think Yanmega's in that 5 to 10 range of like Pokemon in this format. Speed Boost, ridiculously good ability. Tinted Lens, almost more ridiculously good ability. I think it works well in a lot of teams. I think that Mono Bug actually kind of works. Like, if you're just constructing a Mono Bug team, I could see it working. Like, you get Yanmega, you get Low Kicks, you get Ferrothorn, you get Galvantula, you get Araquanid. Like, a lot of the best Pokemon in this format are Bug types, and I think it kind of works if you just plug them all together. The problem is that this team doesn't have Ferrothorn, and so the hazard removal is miserable.
Yeah. I used Mono Bug in a Monotype league, and we did like a round robin, and I went like 15-2 with it. So I can absolutely attest to Bug is just a really good type. And go off of your point of like the good bugs, like Yanmega's excellent. Terra Scyther was a mon I was considering, so I think that's.
I do like Terra Scyther a lot, but the problem is that Scyther kinda has to be on defog duty all the time. There are 2 hazard removal options on this team, and it's Scyther and Frostmoth clicking defog. Neither of them wants to switch in to do that because they need boots to do so, which then means Scyther is pretty heavily nerfed because you can't have like a damage boosting item or like a resist berry or anything like that. You need boots all the time. I mean, this team is going to be either, and that's where we get into like the player judgment of it all that I'm kind of avoiding. I know some of these players and don't know some of these players, but like I don't know if Connor is going to be patient enough to run 6 bug type.
Yeah, no, that's.
Or excuse me, to run 6 heavy duty boots. Like because that's what it's gonna take.
Yeah.
I do think a lot of people are underrating Arceus Bug. Well the Arceus Bug is like a gentleman's agreement. Anybody can agree to allow him to use Arceus Bug with basically whatever restrictions. I think some people are underrating what like Yanmega Arceus Bug are as like an offensive core. Because like Bug type Extreme Killer is still Extreme Killer with ridiculous base stats.
Absolutely.
Like, people are definitely underrating that aspect of it. I think if you're playing against that version of it, be sure to bring rocks, because Arceus is the one that can't hold boots, and that's gonna really suck for it. And also bring a ghost type, because it's good against bug, and it's also really good against extreme speed.
Yeah.
So there are my tips for anyone playing this Arceus bug variant.
Or
not that you probably need any tips, because this team's just not good.
Or the biggest tip for me is just don't agree. And then you don't have to worry about it.
And again, there is a chance you get steamrolled by something on this team. Araquanid can like bust through a check. Yanmega can bust through a check and also like speed boost setup.
Frostmoth.
Frostmoth can set up. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of Quiver Dance on this team. So you can't take it, like, not seriously at all.
Yeah.
But, like, this team just doesn't synergize. Like, and that's the one thing this team's good at doing is setting webs. But the problem is, if it wants rocks off ever, then it needs to defog, which gets rid of the webs. So you kind of lose the one thing that you actually bring to the table.
Yeah. I think on Scizor, honestly, I don't think the team is... I mean, it's still bad. Like, it's still really not great, but Scizor can do something other than webs, and it can actually, like everyone on this team has a weakness to rocks, and Scizor would not have a weakness to rocks.
Or even I know that was something that was kind of sniped out, especially there was kind of a third, fourth-ish round run on Rapid Spin in this draft, and I think that was a round where this team missed out on Ferrothorn, and the team kind of goes downhill when you don't have that, because that's your best hazard removal option, and like the same typing as Scizor, which obviously a fantastic typing that makes you not weak to rocks. And not weak to flying, which is also a big problem. Oh, not Ferrothorn, Forretress. I get them mixed up. I think that's enough on this.
Yeah, and anyone with eyes can see the issues with this team.
Yeah.
Moving on, we have a team that averaged out. I'm now going to be saying the averages for all of these because we all put them at different spots. But we see a pretty big jump from average of 19 to 14.4, and that is going to be the Boston Brelooms. This team, I ranked it the highest purely off of Rain. I think Rain is just one of those archetypes that do well in Draft League no matter what, even though this is not the best Rain team at all. I was kind of hoping there would be Terra Colossal. I was ranking Terra Colossal in mine, and to not see it is great, because this team needs Rain. It needs Rain to be its best, and it can go without Rain, but you really need Rain.
Yeah, I think the thing is, when I was looking at this team, I actually think that Rain is viable. We'll be talking about another team later, where I feel somewhat differently. But I think Rain is viable with the way that this format is set up with the tier list as it is. And I think Politoed is just a good Pokemon in general. I think I just like the Pokemon when I look at them, and it's kind of weird saying it like that, but I look at the list of Pokemon here and I'm like, I don't feel scared. I guess I should feel more scared of Dreadnought, maybe.
But that's
I think that's kind of it, because Uxie and Amoonguss are really passive. Uxie can set up, but its attacking stats are worse than you'd probably imagine. The team is brutally weak to ground for a lot of cases. Even
if Uxie does set up, you just send in a Dark type, and what does this team even do against a Dark type?
Yeah.
They can't pivot, they can't... I think this team is going to have a lot of struggles, and the only reason they're as high for me is just because Rain is, it's just good. It is always good.
Well, and I think that just ends up being my big issue, is that I would have liked a different Rain Sweeper, available very late into the draft. I know this team is kind of auto-filled, so that's kind of part of why I give it some benefit of the doubt, but even available now, Basque Legion female.
Oh, yeah.
But Basque Legion, better Rain Sweeper. I think Dreadnought is ranked fairly high because it condenses a lot of stuff. It gives you rocks, and you can shell smash. You can shell smash with Dreadnought, right? I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
Shell smash, yeah. That's where it gets a lot of its value from. But when you have your Rain Sweeper, you kind of want them to just be able to switch in with Rain up and just start hitting things. And I don't think this has a Pokemon on this team that can do that.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me most concerned.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean... I don't know what else to say. I mean, they... even if you look at it from, okay, they don't bring Rain, which this team would just not work, in my opinion, without Rain, or it doesn't really function without Rain. They have...
I mean, I look at like a non-rain version and you bring like Uxie, Dreadnought, Duraludon, Amoonguss.
Colossal, maybe
and you start to run out of Pokemon.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I wonder, again, this team is kind of auto-filled. I wonder if they're going to trade at any point. Like Camerupt, Colossal, Pikachu, stack all those on top of each other and see what you can find, or even just two of them together and see what you can find. And I can imagine this team working a bit better, but I don't know. I look at that ground row, or the column, and I'm just like really scared. That's pretty bad. Uxie's gotta hold it down, and I mean, Uxie's good, but there's a lot that Uxie can't do.
Like, even like when you bring up like the ground weakness, like I'm scared of the dark weakness and the ghost weakness. Like, at the very least, you have Uxie. You have nothing for those types. You have no dragon switch-in besides really Uxie. Like,
Well, and you have no nice switch-in for knockoff, which feels very bad.
Oh, yeah. This just has a lot of problems.
Is also going to be kind of overtaxed, just being, like, bulky and having Regenerator, but, I mean, you do get rid of the fire weakness, that's nice, but, I don't know, I feel like if you just index onto being able to hit Amoonguss on a switch-in well, and then just having other setup stuff, like, I don't know, this team feels kind of awkward.
Yeah. It's matchup hunter. Like, if it just gets a good matchup, one or two good matchups, like, that's where it's gonna find wins. I don't see this team, like, as an underdog, as, like, sort of in basketball terms, like a Brooklyn Nets versus Sixers. I don't see, like, that's how I see them. Them being swept against something that is just insanely.
I could see that. And I think that the one difference maker is, like, if Dreadnought can get, like, a shell smash off and just start running over things, because I think it's possible in this format, but I'm not, like, I don't know. Not feeling it.
So I guess, unless you have any other thoughts?
I got nothing.
Alright, then we can move on over to the Veilstone Phisers, and let me just find the team.
It's
right here.
This team is like, because a lot of teams, my basic path is like, of how I looked at these teams, I first, like, I was just kind of like plugging them in so that I'd be able to, like, easily put them in the prep doc,
right.
And then, like, kind of just looking at the Pokemon by themselves and just being, what do I see when I look at this? What do I think? What do I want to respond to? And then I put it into the prep doc and I go, okay, what did this tell me on top of what was being told to me earlier? This is one of a couple of teams in here that's just miserably slow. Like, other than Slacking, which
only moves
I think Slacking does have a little bit of niche use in. But other than Slacking, your highest speed Pokemon is Low Kicks at 92, and Low Kicks' entire thing is that you don't use that speed stat because you use First Impression. Or Sucker Punch, And past that, you just have such bad speed. And there are a lot of teams that I'm going to kind of say this kind of thing about, but, I mean, I don't know, the Pokemon just don't feel right. Like, I did Low Kicks a little bit, and it kind of just didn't click for me on how I want to use it or not. Same with kind of Alolan Muck, and
that's really interesting.
Obviously those two don't overlap a whole lot in what they're weak to, but they are both dark types, and that's investing a lot of your power in dark types. Low to me is probably one of the top mons, like top X mon. It is like clear to me top 5, top 10 mon. And to an extent, I like early on I actually did like this draft. I liked Low Kicks, I like Hoopa, I thought Terra Tatsugiri might be a game plan. Like, there were definitely some nice pieces, but this team... I like Tatsugiri a lot for 5.
Yeah, like Rapid Spin, Terra, like, options with it. But, like, this team just feels like it's trying to do too many things at once. Like, it wants to be webs, it wants to be contrary, it wants to also have rocks, and it wants to do so many, and you have Luxio, which wants to do its own set of thing, and you have Slacking that wants to do its own thing. It's like, it's just all over the place, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think my big issue is when I look at this team, I say, okay, the stuff in terms of prepping against it, it's like, okay, the stuff I need to prep for is the 4 or the 5 double-digit point Mons.
Yeah.
And kind of a roulette wheel of the other Pokemon, but I'm not that scared of any of them.
Yeah.
And then when I look at those top 4 or those top 5, I'm like, what am I scared of them doing to me? Like, that's what I'm gonna say a lot of these bad teams, and I'm like, what am I scared of this team doing to me? What am I scared of a Hoopa doing to me? Like, can I just have a fast Pokemon and just hit them hard, like, really hard? Like, I think there are types that hit most of those 5 pretty well.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up, I feel like with the bad teams, a lot of it is just like defensively, I noticed that a lot of them were just specially weak. Like, they're just specially weak to like fire types or types, and it doesn't even need to be that specific type. Like, they are just weak to special moves or whatever. And with this team, like, I don't like the Terra captains besides Lurantis. Like, I already talked about Terra Tatsugiri, but Terra Slacking could have been so, like...
Not to mention, like, Terra Veluza, which I actually... Veluza feels under-tiered to me, too.
With Terra.
That's a good pickup, and with Terra, you can just fillet away and try to sweep, and that's an extra thing that the other person has to think about in draft, especially in prep, especially considering, like, okay, do I want to, like... That's one thing where it's like, you kind of have to assume something on this team is going to be scarfed any given week, whether it's Tatsugiri or Hoopa.
Yeah.
That's kind of a short list now that I'm looking at it. That's great, because I don't think anything else is great with Scarf. Slacking, obviously. But past that, like, you can respond to that by just saying, what if I Scarf something at a higher speed tier than Tatsugiri?
Yeah.
And then I know I'm not going to get outsped by anything. And Veluza kind of has to contend with that as well. And it breaks that a little bit, and Slacking breaks that a little bit. And, I mean, there's some other little things this team can do, but I don't know. I don't look at this team and I'm like, I don't know what beats me, and it's just kind of a lot of Pokemon, like Muck and Donphan are just... I like Donphan, but it mostly compresses a lot of utility into one Pokemon.
Yeah.
And that means that you really have to find good value out of the other Pokemon, and I don't know, I just don't like Muck that much.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Alola Muck. But I think on this team,
it's a weird fit.
Yeah, I'm a fan of it on this team either. In the moment, like, I felt like, oh my god, like, this team is, like, so crazy, because look how much stuff can, like, set up, but then you kind of have, like, a realization of, like, oh, they can only bring 6. Like,
yeah.
you're kind of, like, you start going down the list of, like, oh yeah, Low Kicks is, like, has to come to every match, Donphan has to come to a lot of matches, Zong has to come to a lot of matches, Hoopa, Tatsugiri, one of those two, and then it's, like, pick a win con and pick if you want more defense or webs. And, like, I feel like there's not a ton of flexibility with this team.
Yeah, I think that's all I got.
Yeah, same. Moving on, we have a very interesting team that I was extremely low on, and
I've overranked this team.
Okay.
I will say I looked at a lot of these. It was late last night that I was doing this, and some of them I didn't look closely enough at. This one I definitely didn't look closely enough at, because I was like, I see things I like on this team. Like, I think Terra Malamar is a fantastic, like, probably the best Terra captain just here in general. Do you want to say the name of the team first?
Yeah, Rampardos, 13.6.
Yeah, I think Terra Malamar is, like, one of the best Terra captains. I think Hatterene's a really interesting Pokemon. I like it quite a bit. I like Breloom quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think this team changed from this version, because I think that he picked up Regieleki, which is hysterically, and that justifies me a little bit. Because Regieleki gives you spin, so you no longer have absolutely no hazard removal, which you did before this. I think the funny thing is, you just look at the speed tiers and you're like,
oh my god.
I mean, yeah, you see that. Yeah, it was equally funny when it was Electrode, but now it's even funnier.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing when you look at this team playing against it, is that, like, the thing about having good speed tiers, it's not just you need to have a fast Pokemon to outspeed everything the other team has. That's part of it, but part of it is just you need to have Pokemon that will stop the other team from just going adamant or modest on their offensive Pokemon. And Regieleki's not going to do that because basically nothing is going to outspeed Regieleki regardless. And Malamar being your fastest Pokemon on the other end means that there are a lot of like base 90-ish Pokemon that are going to be harder hitting and bulkier than usual just because this team can't do anything about it. And obviously you can Scarf some of this stuff, but there's not really great Scarf options. Malamar's not a great Scarfer. Breloom, you don't usually want to do that. Bisharp, not really. I mean, Bisharp can do a little bit with that, but I mean, that's not the speed tier you want to Scarf with. You want to Scarf with like the a little bit higher, like that 80-ish.
Yeah.
And Rampardos is not a bad Scarfer, but is also like just really slow. Like you're not gonna actually outspeed that much. I've tried to do it with like Tyranitar before, which is pretty similar, and you just don't get to outspeed anything.
Yeah.
It's just a really awkward speed tier. So I don't really know. Like this issue is gonna be pretty bad, and obviously this team has Bisharp Sucker Punch, and it has Breloom Mach Punch, like Technician Mach Punch, and you have the Magic Bounce to keep off rocks, which feels great. I don't know, I just look at this team and I go, I think these Pokemon are good and are able to do good things, but I feel like you can fish for so much nonsense in Builder just because this is the one team that doesn't have ways of dealing with stuff.
Yeah, no, I just don't like this team. like, I think you hit the nail on the head perfectly. There's a lot of Pokemon on this team I absolutely love. Had Breloom, Regieleki, Bisharp, Dragalge, I think could be fantastic, but they just don't work together. They just don't. There's no synergy. I felt like Regieleki was fine, and Electro Hisui was fine, and like to go to Regieleki as like the only transaction to me, like.
I think it's an upgrade, and I think it does pick the biggest glaring hole in the team. Like, I don't think I would put it at 9 again, like I did on my original version, but I don't think I would have it at, like, bottom 3, 4, because I do like Regieleki as the addition there. It's just, this team has an uphill battle to fight with how much like damage and bulk other teams are going to have. And you do have a ton of damage yourself. Like, these Pokemon are good Pokemon. I don't know, it's just it's tough.
I feel like this is one of those teams where you play against it, you just get up your hazards, and then you send in something that like is that is Specs, Bandit, set up, and it just like it clicks an SD, it clicks a nasty plot, and then what does the opponent do? Like they only have Aleki as like a faster one. There's a lot
of like fast ground type just steamrolls this team. This team also doesn't have a ground immune. It's only ground resistance Breloom, and Breloom just doesn't eat hits.
This team's also only water, like actual water resistant Pokemon is Dragalge. Like, Breloom does not count.
Yeah, Breloom, it has the types, but it just doesn't have bulk. Like, those stats just aren't good enough.
Oh yeah, no fairy resist too, just to add a fun one.
Yeah.
It's just not my team. It's just not my favorite team of all time.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it works out.
Yeah.
Because I think it does have, like, I don't know, I think there are matchups where it'll be able to function a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think that it'll much be like a test of how well the other player can prep against this team, rather than what this team can do against other people to actually make itself work.
Yeah, that's all the thoughts I have, so...
Yeah.
Up next is godforsaken. I mean, you could have named your team literally anything, and you have to choose Kansas as like the... Kansas Klefkis. I actually want to talk about this team first because I'm annoyed that like where this team ended up placing for me, because I feel like there's so many cool things, and I think I have to update this. Do I? I'm not sure.
I don't think this is the team.
I saw Slowpoke.
I think it kept this because I think the Glowpoke got traded with the Slowpoke trade.
Yeah, I updated that.
Which Slowpoke, I know its game. I didn't understand its game. It does have heat.
Dude, I'm not gonna respect Slowpoke. Like,
I don't. It's a 2-point mon. It's not a 1-point.
Yeah.
And I risk it on that basis. But in any case, looking at the broader, Slowpoke's not gonna come a whole lot. But looking at the broader team, I think the way I wrote it in my notes is just like go Blastoise do everything.
Yeah.
Because this team, you look at it and it's like Blissey, Blob, Klefki, Blob, Shaman. It can kind of do some stuff, but like you mostly want it to be a Blob.
Same with
Scrafty. You can D-dance up, but Scrafty's like attacking stats is just like worse than you'd think. And it can kind of function as a blob in a lot of cases. And to be honest, Houndstone is a blob. A lot of people don't really consider it as such. I was considering drafting Houndstone as a blob, because Fluffy is a really good ability with Ghost. That is what it does. So this team is mostly blobs.
Yeah.
And Blastoise, part of why it's 16 is because it is sometimes a blob. That's one of the things that this list is missing, is that Blastoise has Suspend and Paldea, right?
Yeah, I don't know why that's... Yeah, no. Okay. And it has Flip Turn. Yeah.
Yeah. But in any case, like it has Spin and you can play it as like a bit of a blob, but it also has Shell Smash and you can try to sweep with it.
Yeah.
But when it kind of has to do everything offensively, it's going to be really tough. And like Scrafty and Shaman can find opportunities, as well as, I mean, Combuskin as like a very low tier Terra is not bad. But, I mean, you need at least 2 speed boosts to start actually outspeeding anything, and it's not guaranteed that you won't just, like, get knocked out, before then. But yeah, it's just like, I feel like Blastoise has to do everything offensively for this team, and that's just not gonna work.
Yeah, no, that's my biggest complaint too. I really thought Houndstone, Blissey, Klefki is like such a nice, like, 3 collection of mons to, like, for any team, because you get the spikes, you get rocks with Blissey, you get screen support with Klefki, Houndstone, great wall, and Blastoise can play a kind of flexible role with that, but then you surround it with Combuskin and Executor and Shaman, and there's
That's the thing, is I pick Klefki and Shaman. If I'm picking out a specific thing, I think it's that Klefki and Shaman can't really end up on the same team. 1, because they're both fire weak, and 2, because they're both a little bit blobbier than you'd want. Like, they can flex out of that role a little bit, but you don't want them to do that all the time. Like, you're drafting them as a blob that can sometimes do something else. And in this case, you're them as usually doing something else and sometimes getting to blob.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's why, in particular, I really don't like the Terras on this team. Like, Terra Combuskin, I'm not familiar with your game, but you are an NFE. Like, I can't imagine a world where
just look at the stats. It's not it's not gonna steamroll everyone.
And then on top of that, you have Terra Executor, which would be fine for maybe another team, but like, you already have Shaman. Shaman just does what Executor does, but just like a bit better. So
yeah, Executor is like one of those like low tier chlorophyll mons, and I don't really see a point in it.
Does what Executor does, but just like a bit better. So
yeah, Executor is like one of those like low tier chlorophyll mons, and I don't really see a point in it otherwise.
Yeah, like
if you don't have like any way or incentive to get sun up.
Like you were talking about earlier, I forget which team, but you were like, or I think it was the Boston Brelooms. You were like they should just like trade 3 of these mons for like 2 or 1 or like something, and just like get some better value. I see that here completely. Like Combuskin, Executor, and Slowpoke seems like a one or 2 mon package, and you could like substantially upgrade this team. Like
and I'll add on top of that I think Scrafty is a pretty good Terra captain.
Yeah.
And so you could do like Scrafty Avalug or something, and that's a great Terra duo.
Yeah, and I think that is why I'm like very annoyed that this is like, for me it was the 16th ranked team because of where I was, but it goes to a 15th ranked team. I just, this team is frustrating because it's like 2-3 moves away from like really being a good team. And yeah, it's just Blastoise go boom.
I'm intrigued by this next one. No, I'm really actually interested to get to this next one.
Oh my god.
Because it's one of the bigger splits, and I'm curious the discussion on this one.
Alright, so next we have at 11.6. I thought I was reading the wrong one. Alright, we have the Hero Hunters. I kinda want the
I want you to
floor
lead
here.
in on this.
Yeah,
I want you to go in, because I will talk about this team, but I'm curious what you have to say.
I keep confusing them because like the other purple team is 7 and this one's 17 for me. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, this team has kind of grown on me a tiny bit, but like Zoroark is just a crazy first pick. Let me just start with that. I think Zoroark is such an insane first pick, and to have the luck to get Skeledirge and Feraligatr is crazy, because that honestly isn't that bad. Whimsicott is fine, but I just don't really know what it does on this team. I'm pretty sure it doesn't get defog. Like, there are some interesting ideas with this team. I think Venomoth with Sleep Powder is really nice, and you could maybe run a U-turn, you could really do something like that. The knockoff presence is kind of there. The rocks present is probably the biggest weakness to me for this team. Like, this team needs rocks. Like, you have Zoroark, you have Dirge, you have Feraligatr. You need Mons getting chipped, you need the constant damage, because like you kind of don't really have offensive presence besides like your top 3. Like, everyone else needs to set up, with the exception of I think Medicham. Like, and Terra Medicham's amazing. Like, don't get me wrong. But you know what? Terra Cosmoem, honestly, is not the worst pick in the world. I think it's never gonna Terra, but maybe one game. But honestly, it's not the worst. Pick. Yeah,
it's a 1-point mascot pick. I found what I think is the best 1-pointer, but sometimes you just have 1 point.
Yeah. So I just don't. This team's confusing. This team is just. Hey, what's up? It's Kayla. You're gonna see me more at Kayla, and I thought I would kind of weigh in more. I feel like I didn't make my points clear. Dennis is going to bring up some excellence points. But what I meant by what I said was, I mean, at the heart of it, I just don't like relying on a gimmick mon. I don't think the Zoroark mind games are going to be that prevalent. Like, to make this team work, you're going to have to rely on Zoroark, and it has to come, or else, like, this team just doesn't look good without it. So that's my biggest worry. I think I brought up rocks, I brought up hazard control. I'm just not the biggest fan of a team like this. It just is very reliant on a couple mons. You're missing, I think an ice type honestly would have been really good for this team, just like offensively. Obviously Medicham could Terra into it. I also think having a better steel, better dragon type, what's this team? Fairy, Whimsicott, like, I don't know. This team's just really squishy to me. Like, it's being held up by Cosmoem and like Eviolite, Sliggoo, Hisui defensively. That's just, to me, not a great recipe. And also Minior in, shell down form, when it obviously gets to, when it's not in that form, it's also frail. So this team's just very squishy, and it just has to be able to outspeed things. And to me, priority exists. So that is kind of my worries. But yeah, back to regularly scheduled program.
Yeah,
and
I think I'm confused by this team, but I think squishy. Just to kind of go in the other direction on how I kind of feel about it, when I look at this team, because I always look at these teams in the context of like, okay, what would I do against this?
Yeah. Like,
what would be my immediate thought of what to do? And I look at this, and I feel like I'm looking at my builder, and I feel like I'm in hell. I feel like I have to be concerned if any one of these Pokemon is Zoroark. Because Zoroark, it's not a fantastic Pokemon, but it is still 120 special attack, 105 speed in a low tier format. That's really hard hitting. That is really scary. You could lose a Pokemon because you think it's Zoroark or you don't think it's Zoroark. And what's concerning is if you do think it's Zoroark, Medicham works really well with that. Venomoth works really, really well with that. There are some things that Venomoth will be able to take and then click Quiver Dance, and then you lose. And, I mean, for Alligator as well, it gets the Dragon Dance up. Skeleturge can be kind of hard to hit when you have to manage, like, okay, what am I actually hitting right now? I don't know if this team actually works. I don't know if it has switches. I don't think Whimsicott works out that well. But, like, I feel the worst looking at this team out of, I think, any team on this list. And for that, I kind of had to bump it up a little bit just because of, like, I just feel bad looking at this team. I don't want to play against this team. I think the big thing is that, like, you can get swept pretty quickly by this team if you make one or two mistakes.
Yeah.
And that's what scares me more than anything else. And it'll come down to piloting, I think, for this team. Because I think this team could get, like, steamrolled often, or it can steamroll people often based on, like, cleverly playing around Zoroark and, frankly, Medicham. I do think
Medicham's really good.
5-point Terra is absurd.
Yeah.
That was one that I did not notice ahead of time. I didn't have it on my radar. A lot of the stuff I did have on my radar is on my team, but that's one I didn't even think about, and yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think this team is just too squishy, and, like, I don't know, like, all of the stuff I said before, I think just, maybe it's because I have a good team, like, spoiler alert for that, I guess, but, like, maybe it's because I have a lot of good mons that can match up well, but, like, I just worry about, you know, what happens when Rocks gets up on this team. And,
yeah, this team is very bad against hazards. Like, this team doesn't want a game to go slowly. It has the mechanics to make a game go quickly and to win a quick game, which I think is a big plus of this team. But if a game gets slowed down a little bit, you really start to feel the fact that you have no clearance. You have no hazard clearance. Like, Venomoth doesn't count.
Yeah.
Venomoth shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I could, honestly, from your vantage point, like, I could totally see this team, like, just having really, really good games where Zoroark just, like, is the MVP and does something amazing. But
or even, like, you think it's Zoroark and you hit it with some move and then it just eats it and you're like, oh, well, I lose now. Like, it got Quiver Dance up. We're done.
Yeah. And I also, like, Dirge is one of my favorite Pokemons. Like, honest.
Dirge is
ever.
really good for this format. Really, really good for this format. And part of it's because Unaware kind of plays up. But Dirge is very good for this format.
Yeah. So.
And so is Alligator, frankly. Like, those are.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if they're certainly in the top X. Like, certainly top 10-ish, maybe. I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna try not to say that about more than 10 Pokemon, which will be difficult.
Oh man, I'm gonna keep a counter in the. You're at 3.
Oh no.
But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I have. I mean, I hope all of these teams can, like, overcome their weaknesses and whatnot.
That's the thing.
But, like,
I think a lot of it will come down to just how well the player plays, like, regardless of how the draft goes down. And I do think a lot of people, like, at this point, you have incentive to hide what your team is good at until you actually start getting into battles, and people are like, oh, this is what this team does well, this is what this team does poorly, this is how you can cover up for XYZ. And so, I don't know, it's not a personal insult if your team is low ranked. Maybe it means that you're just going to show everyone. I have some interesting things to say about this one.
Really? Because I feel like we're in the same boat with this one, I feel like.
Yeah.
We're pretty, so next we have, at an average of 11, placing it at, I don't know, like 13th, 12th. A lot of the averages are really weird because, like, how many teams that are 7? Like, there are like 6 or 7 teams that have an average of 7. So, like, I was gonna say beforehand, but, like, I'll say it now. Like, the top 4 are very pronounced, and the top and the bottom, what was it, like 4? Bottom 5?
Yeah, the bottom 5-ish are
pronounced.
pretty pronounced, and then everything in between is kind of a muck.
Yeah. So, moving on to 11 average, we have the Ceaseless Ceruledge, who unfortunately do not have their mascot. Yeah, I feel like...
That was the next one. Hold on. I didn't have something. I forgot which one was which. Okay,
Oh.
continue. Well, I do have stuff to say about this. This team is fascinating.
Yes, I'm glad we're in agreement. I love Mr. Hands. Do not search up Mr. Hands. Gallade is...
Do not Google that.
Absolutely do not. Gallade is one of my favorite Pokemon in Draft, and I think in this format
top
specifically...
X for sure. It's absolutely top X. Maybe it's top 5.
And Crawdon is... I feel like this offensive core comes every week, and it's just gonna put in work. And I really like that. I think the first 2 picks are very questionable, but I don't think they're specifically bad with this team.
I think Ditto's whack.
Ditto's whack. Ditto's completely whack.
Ditto's whack. I don't think Ditto works.
I think it should have been like
Ditto.
4 points.
I think Ditto should have been less, but I like having Ditto higher in points because it sucks trying to prep for something and then being like, oh, Ditto's there. So I do think Ditto's like kind of appropriate point wise, but I also think it's kind of whack. The big issue, and you'll see kind of when you look at these like the stat tiers that it looks terrible, but that's because Ditto and Smeargle and Flittle are all there, and those are... Ditto is not a Pokemon. Ditto is not those stats. Flittle is not in the game, and Smeargle is not that Pokemon.
Yeah, it looks.
When you look at it this way, it looks better. But then you see the speed tier where nothing is above 86.
86 is so wild.
Like you need to Scarf Rotom every week, or you just get steamrolled.
Or Scarf Gallade.
And that feels really bad. Like neither of those is what you want to do with either of those Pokemon.
Yeah.
And you do have Crawdon able to D-Dance, but even +1 Crawdon is not very fast.
Yeah.
And you don't have rocks, and you don't have good...
No, they have rocks.
Oh, you have rocks. You have
the GOAT.
Stack of course. Yeah.
And Registeel. I
would never talk down on Knuckle Stack. I did consider picking it very briefly, but I mean it's not great. You have Smeargle for anything you need, but also if Smeargle is for anything you need, you're in a bad spot.
Yeah.
Like if Smeargle is there for your hazard removal, that's not good.
I think with this team, what I really like is I like the Ghost types. I like Steel. I like Crawdon. I even like Knuckle Stack. I like Gallade. Somewhat.
I don't love
Rotomo.
both the Ghost types, but I do like the Ghost types.
I like having one of those Ghost types. I think if they trade out any of those Ghost types, like this team's fine. I think again another team where you trade out Poltergeist or Drifblim, you trade out Flittle, Smeargle, and Ditto, and like upgrade like some of the positions.
Get like 2 really Pokemon back, get something.
You get a ground type.
100-ish speed, get a ground type.
A grounded poison. Like, I'm not a big fan of Smeargle, so that's also why I'm like saying this.
I don't hate Smeargle in this format. I think it can do some whack stuff, and I like that, but...
My problem is you have to bring it. Like, you have to waste
a spot you do have to bring
Smeargle.
It a lot.
Like...
I think there's a team that works that doesn't have Smeargle and does have other stuff, but I don't know, Ditto is the thing that, like, just drags this down for me. Because I think there are a lot of teams that can just, like, I don't know, you bring, like... Because that's the other problem, is that the 2 best Pokemon on this team are both physical attackers.
Yes.
And someone just bringing Intimidate and bringing Physical Bulk. What do you do about that?
Yeah.
You have Poltegeist, you have Rotom, you have Drifblim. That's not gonna do it.
I think the one good thing is like just knockoff, like having both Crawdon and Gallade as like notable knockoff users is really really nice to just get rid of like a possible helmet for each of them. Like I think that's nice. I think Drifblim can be really really good in this format. Same with Poltegeist. Like I think I made a bold claim in my predictions. I don't know if I actually put it, but like by the end of the season, if this team does really, really well, I think there's going to be 3 Mons in the top 15 kill leaders. Like, that's the potential this team has.
That's all,
But
I think that's the potential the team has, and that's what these Pokemon do when they succeed. Yeah.
But will they succeed is like the other.
But will they succeed?
So,
yeah.
I like this team. I like a lot of Mons, but we'll just have to see. Alright, moving on, we have, honestly, a team that is, in my opinion, pretty well placed. I have some questions for some people who did the PRs.
I had what was Mark thinking about this?
I have no clue. But we have, at 10.8, the Tokyo Pachurisus.
I think my biggest issue with this team is I don't know where the damage comes from.
Yes, yeah.
And that might just be underrating Cyclizar, because the other thing is just like, okay, I've played Typhlosion a lot, and I really like it in Draft. The problem is I like Typhlosion as like a 5-point Pokemon that has like real wall breaker potential, because you can bring it with Scarf and Eruption and people don't know it's coming. If it's your main source of damage, people know it's coming. Mimikyu is a similar spot where it's like, I really like Mimikyu, I think it can do a lot. If people know it's coming, it is not hard to prep for. Jolteon's in a similar band, and no Terra Jolteon, you have electric moves and you have Alluring Voice, I think. And that's all you really have as Jolteon. And there's a lot of ways that people can just wall that out. So I'm worried about what this team does, because all you really have is Dozo, Clodsire, Cyclizar, like bulky stall stuff. But if you don't have the damage to back that up, what are you doing here?
For me, this was, I think, the first team that I ranked that was, or no, this was the second team that I ranked that was the bulky stall archetype. And in my personal opinion, and it's a theme with the teams I ranked, I tried to be as consistent as possible with that, I just don't think stall is going to work that well. I really, really don't. And if it does work, you need rocks, you need spikes, and you need damage. And you don't really get the damage in low tiers. And especially with this team, you're relying on setup Jolteon, Swords Dance, Grassy Glide, Thwacky, Swords Dance, Mimikyu, Scarf, Typhlosion.
Yeah, you're genuinely putting a lot of your damage profile in Thwacky, which is not ideal.
Yeah, and like, I feel like Chansey is like just such a, it just doesn't really.
And you don't want Clodsire to just have to rock all the time, because then it opens itself up to just getting hit really hard when it's trying to rock. But that's the problem with this team, is that it's just like the stuff doesn't support each other, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think you could play stall with this top 3 and maybe Typhlo, but the rest of it, like, you need something with more damage and you need other ways to build passive damage, probably. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. And also, honestly, I thought it was fine, and I still think it's fine, but only one spinner is a little bit... It's Cyclizar, and I love Cyclizar, but it's a little bit scary for this team.
Because Cyclizar is going to need to click shift gear a lot.
Yeah.
Like, if you're actually going to play out games and win games and hit things, like, you're gonna need shift gear Cyclizar, you're gonna need, like, specs Cyclizar. Like, that's the problem.
Yeah. We didn't even talk about Terra Articuno, but, like, I think I think it can be interesting. It
feels high-priced. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not against it. It's just... And again, that's another thing where, like, you can't Terra before you're out there.
Yeah, so like,
you might take half of your damage, half of your health to rock.
Yeah.
You have to spin to keep it off.
It stinks, because you either have to run, like, Boots Articuno just to ensure you get the Terra off, or you have to, like... Unless you have a decent matchup where you're like, okay, like, I can spin rocks before bringing it in, like... Or you have to just lead it and just Terra, and, like... I just don't like Terra Articuno for this. I feel like it can do really good for this team, but I also feel like it's just, like... I don't know, like... And I
just wanted something with a little bit more punch to it.
yeah, and I completely forgot about it until, like, I just really looked at this team, but can you, Dennis, can you...
Me, yeah.
Can you please tell me which Mon switches into knockoff on this team?
Yeah, it's kind of a miserable time doing that. Like, I guess Dondozo, like, or maybe Clodsire, just because you can recover, but... I don't know, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Like, having to rely on Clodsire. Like, you get your double unawares and stuff, yeah, that's cool, but, like, unaware doesn't prevent you from taking more damage to, like, banded knockoff, or even just, like, specs whatever. Which this team, like, I don't know, it just feels bad looking at this team.
Yeah, like, let me find the best way. I feel like teams with one exploitable weakness, like a knockoff weakness or a rocks weakness, like, they're not exploitable because of those weaknesses. They're not exploitable because, oh, they can't, you know, deal with rocks, or they can't deal with knockoffs, because, like, every coach is gonna find a way to try and mitigate that.
Yeah.
It becomes an exploitable weakness when it's like, oh shoot, like, I have to think of knockoff. Like, knockoff could happen, or they could set up rocks, and then you're forced to make a Dondozo play, or you're forced to I don't know, switch in a steel type or something, and they click U-turn, or they click a setup move. Like, that's when it becomes an exploitable weakness. So that's why I think this team might struggle. And like, obviously unaware is like a thing, like that was just a little example, but I don't know. I'm not a fan of defense in this metagame at least, and this team doesn't really do it right for me. So.
Yeah.
And there's a team later on, which I am very confused about how it got so many high place ratings, and I really want to get into that one.
I'm curious into that one, but let's get to this next one.
Yeah, so
actually, we don't gotta do this next one. It's not that important.
We have at 9.75 NJMS Pokemon, and I have so many mixed thoughts about this. I feel like, did we all like kind of just place it in the middle? Besides,
yeah, I placed it a little on the low end, Cetitan placed it a little on the high end. I mean, I think. So my thing, I've figured out how a lot of people play over the years, because I've played like 3, 4, or 5 draft leagues with some of you people.
Yeah.
Like I figured out how you play to a degree.
Oh, no.
And like draft, and I figured out how Mark drafts, where Mark just picks his cores. You can see he picked his cores in order.
Yeah.
Like steel type, water type, fairy type, grass type, fire type, dragon type in order. And the problem is you can do that, and then you forget that your dragon type is bad, and your only thing that answers ground types is Wo-Chen, which can't actually do anything to those ground types. So now you're relying on like Air Balloon Magnezone or even Tentacruel all the time, and you just get hit really hard, or bringing Altaria way more often than you want to.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's kind of how a lot of this trickles down, I think, where Tentacruel does have spin, right? This thing, I'm pretty sure it does, and that's nice. Like, you do get your spin, you do get your rocks. Like, I don't think Screamtail's a bad Pokemon. I like Mienshao, actually, or Mienshao. I don't know how to say Mienshao.
To me, that was like a top
I
X.
like it. Yeah, I think it's definitely in that range. I don't want to commit to it being top X, but because I do think that it has... I think if you're using it as your number one, which this team is, you're kind of limiting yourself a little bit to a more offensive role.
Yeah.
Just because you're spending all these points on it, you're not going to use it to be kind of a flexible, like, I can take a hit here and there and Regenerator out, like Regenerator fast U-turn out. You don't really want to do that when, especially on this team where it's like Tentacruel, not super offensive, Screamtail, absolutely not offensive, Wo-Chen.
Altaria.
Like, you have Magnezone for that damage, but even then, Magnezone, I don't know, it feels weird for a lot of that stuff, and it's very slow for your best damage aside from your top tier. Like, I don't know. It just feels a little awkward. That's the big thing. It's just a little awkward.
I think flexibility is like the theme of this team, because the biggest one I highlighted with flexibility, like, I can totally see Mienshao. For me, it was Screamtail. I think Screamtail is such a great Wish user, it's such a great Rocks user, but where it like completely shines is just the sheer move pool that this thing has. It has Bulk Up, it has Calm Mind, it has Sub Shenanigans, it has Wish, Rocks, it has those typical moves, but then it has like Moonblast, and it has Psychic, like, and it has coverages like Ice Punch, Fire Punch, all of those. Like, where this mon to me shines is like where you don't really know what Screamtail is gonna do. And for this team, at least when I look at it, I'm like, this is just Screamtail Wish. Like, I don't really understand what else it does, because like you're relying on Magmortar, Mienshao, and Magnezone as the offense. Like, there's gonna be struggles with this team, and I think the ground weakness is by far the biggest one. And Wo-Chen, he had Vileplume before. I actually really liked Vileplume with this team. I thought it fit pretty well. It's not a ground resistance, but it's like, it's close enough. Like, it has Strength Step, it has Recovery, it's not U-turn weak, and Wo-Chen is just kind of, to me, it just doesn't really feel like it fits with this team. So
yeah, I like Wo-Chen quite a bit, and I don't think I necessarily like Vileplume slotted in the same spot, but I do think it feels kind of weird as like, this is my grass type that will do everything my grass type needs to.
Yeah, it's just, this team is very this team will constantly need hazards up because
yeah,
Mienshao is really the only mon that's gonna be able to get like consistently on the floor and get damage off. Like I think Tentacruel and Magnezone and Screamtail and does Altaria get Baton? I don't know. But you have mons that can pivot into it. Like I'm worried that like this is just not gonna be enough offense. Like Mienshao kind of has to do all the offense, and that's just to me. I mean, I like Terra Magmortar and I like Terra Altaria, but like this team is just very disjointed, I guess.
I want to look at this next one because apparently we have very different opinions.
Wait, really? Oh my god.
I'm curious on how this goes.
Alright, so next at 9.2 is Attack on Cetitan, and I have it. Oh my god, I technically have it 7th, and you have it 15th. So
yeah, this team has 5 Pokemon on it.
Wait.
I'm not treating Mabostiff as a serious as a serious thing.
Why did I rank it 8?
Maybe. Zebstrika, I'm not taking seriously. So this team has 5 Pokemon on it, and as good as I think those 5 Pokemon are, they also don't do a lot. Like, Chandelure does one thing, Heracross does one thing, Pidgey kind of does one thing, but both physical and special. So you're kind of relying on Swampert and Pheasantipity to be a lot of this team's, like, weirdness, and, I mean, you don't have good removal, and, like, Swampert kind of has to be offensive to a degree, or it kind of has to be both. It definitely wants to be a bit bulkier here, but, like, Swampert and Pheasantipity just work weird as your whole defensive core. Like, I don't know. I don't understand what's happening when I look at other people, like, the other ratings of this team.
I'm not gonna lie, some of the other ratings are crazy as well, looking at one person's, but I with this team, because I ranked it pretty high as well, like, with this team, I feel like it just benefits from, like, and no offense to any of the other coaches, but some, like, pretty mediocre drafts. Like,
that's fair.
I think this draft is also pretty mediocre. Like you said, like, Toad School is not coming to a match. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm disrespecting it, but, like, that one's just not gonna come.
The channel. Yeah, Toad School's not showing up. I'm not gonna respect Vigoroth. Even if Vigoroth shows up, I'm not gonna respect it.
It's not Terra.
The same's honestly true of Zebstrika. I've seen some Zebstrika fans in the past, like, I've talked to some. I don't respect it. It's a weird, like, even in this, I guess, like, it can Terra Ice now, and so you get that Ice Electric coverage and stuff, but, like, I don't respect it. I simply do not treat it as an equal.
I get that completely. I feel like I envision this team, and it has, like, almost every role down. Besides, I mean, it does have knockers. Like, it has reliable hazards with Swampert. I don't think Heracross is ever bringing spikes, but Heracross, great physical breaker.
Really bad removal.
Yeah, we'll get into that. Chandelure, great special attacker. I feel like complements Heracross pretty well. Fez is a really solid tank pivot. I don't know if it gets used. Yeah, it does get used. Decidueye can. Does it say it here? Yeah, it can clear rocks. Like, I feel like it's gonna be very much going to be doing that, like, the whole season long, because Toad School.
Which is not what you draft Decidueye to do.
Yeah. Mabostiff is honestly whatever. Like, this one I might just be sleeping on it, but, like, you have Heracross. I kind of don't really see Mabostiff doing a lot for this team. Like, maybe it will just have a really, really solid matchup, but Zebstrika, cleaner, Flapple, Breaker, cleaner, kind of, like, I feel like this team had every single role, and for that, like, I just gave it a ton of credit because of that. But the reason why I feel like I completely understand why you would put this team at, like, 16 or whatever. What does this team do against hazards are a complete killer for this team, and, like, like you said,
and I will say, like, well, yeah, and that's the problem, is that, like, Heracross and Chandelure really need those boosting items.
Yeah.
Like, you want, like
Heracross is gonna be burned.
Or something for Heracross. Like, you really want Chandelure to have, like, Specs or something, or even Scarf, just to get its moves off and not get hit by knockoff and stuff. And I don't know if you're gonna be able to, because you gotta boots a lot of the time on these two.
And this team also wants to put up rocks and stuff, but if it starts getting overwhelmed, then it's gonna clear its own hazards. So it's like...
Yeah.
It's just...
Maybe Toad School has to show up, but then you're playing with 5 Pokemon.
Yeah.
Like, I think, as much as I say this team has 5 Pokemon, I think Mabostiff, Substrika, and Flapple, like, on aggregate, create 1 additional Pokemon.
Yeah, like, they'll have their...
And that's part of the issue, where it's like, you can prepare for 5 Pokemon, 2 of which you basically know the set of. Like, Heracross and Chandler, you basically know what they're doing, or at least what their overall role is. It's a lot easier to prepare for something like that when you have so few options to sift through on the other side.
Like...
Yeah, I mean, it has to replace whatever your other low tier is.
I'd hope.
Like, that's a thing every single time, or team is bad. And so even then, it's like, if they have a bad matchup, you can't, like, flex them out in any case. It feels really... I don't know, that's all I really got to say about that one.
I feel like this team is one of the more, like, very high ceilings or very low floors. Like, this team can really go anywhere. Like, and if it gets... It's another, like, matchup Fisher team, because Chandelure and Heracross just, like, might just get a good matchup. You know? Moving on to the team that I do not understand
And we're in the top half now.
We are in the top half now.
Yeah.
I don't understand this team. At 8.2 full point over Attack on Cetitan is the TexasPex. And I
want to hear what you have to say.
I don't understand what the hype about this team is. Really, I look at this team, I look at, what was the other team? The Tokyo Pachurisus. I look at those two teams, and I feel like the Pachurisus just do everything better. Like, the other theme of this team is, you know, with the other team it was offense. And this team, I feel like, is the same way. You just don't have the offense. Like, Snorlax is great, Rotom Heat is great, Flygon is great. But Rotom Heat, first off, is running boots. Like, Fortress, no disrespect, but, like, I'm not too afraid of Fortress. And I feel like for a lot of archetypes, like, Rotom Heat is just gonna be running boots. Like, Flygon kind of has to be banded or D-dance, like, most weeks. Snorlax is, like... I mean, Snorlax honestly could do, like, whatever, but, like, this team is tanks to the extreme. There's not much hazard support besides Fortress. Like, you're not really gonna run Rocks Flygon.
I've done it.
Alright, well...
It's actually really nice, because Flygon's, like, move pool is kinda weird, so you can run, like, D-Dance.
Yeah, like Roost.
Like your other two. No, and that's the thing, is I've actually... If you're basically done with your point, I don't want to cut you off. I've run a lot of these Pokemon fairly recently. I've played Fortress, TexasPex, Mismagius, Rotom Heat, and Flygon all within the last, like, year. So I kind of feel a lot of these Pokemon, and I like them. Like, I like them enough to draft them.
Yeah.
And I think my thing here is, yeah, it does feel... I don't think it's as low on offense as the other one, because I do think Mismagius has good offense, especially with Terra.
That's
You
true.
can
That's true.
be, like, budget Flutter main.
Yeah.
Flygon, I think Flygon's pretty good, and the thing is, I do think this team has some... I kind of looked at this team, and I was like, and it really doesn't, and it also feels good that you can do, like, Flygon, Rotom, basically either of them Scarf and not feel that bad about it, and Dashbun can also be pretty fast, and you can feel pretty good about that. Like, I think there's just a lot of stuff on this team. I think Toxapex can make progress when it's out, like either with hazards, with like Acid Spray and like a bunch of special moves. I think that Snorlax can certainly make progress when it's out. It hits hard in general. You can run Curse and stuff. I believe Umbreon gets Toxic, which feels nice. Like, it's gonna be really necessary to bring like Steel types against this, and like Poison types to prevent Toxic. That's where Flygon comes in.
Yeah.
And even like Rotom.
I just...
hit you really the fire type moves and you're all the time. I don't know, it gets Rapid Spin. It has that terrible to bring most of the time. Volt Switch. Like, it does pivot. It's weird.
Yeah. now.
Am I like cutting in and out again? I'm sorry.
A little bit.
Did you get the gist of what I
think I got
saying?
the gist of what you were saying. I can't... I honestly, I don't really think you're wrong. For me personally, I feel like this team is a lot of fluff. Like, I don't know. The defensive trio, honestly, Umbreon, Fortress, TexasPex cover each other. Not the worst, which is definitely praise of sorts. Like, I don't know. I'm not a fan of defensive teams that rely solely on their defense. Like this is another team that really doesn't appreciate knock. Like, sure, you have the Peck switch in and you have the Fortress switch in, but like, Rotom Heat does not want to get knocked. Flygon, Snorlax, honestly, it's fine, but like, I don't know. The best way I put it was like, Sub just kind of feel like Sub just breaks this team. Like, if your answer is like Pex, like Pex is probably gonna have to run Haze every week, or at least most weeks, because that is, I'm pretty sure, the only phaser besides Dragon Tail, Flygon, and Roar, Dashbone. The thing with like the tanks is they just feel very exploitable. I think Umbreon's like kind of the exception, but like I think the offense is fine. I think the defense looks really good, but the defense also can't really hit back. Like, Fortress is never going to be offensive. TexasPex, I love AV, or Pex, like, both of those to me are really fun sets, but I don't know how often they're going to come. Like, I can't rely on that. Umbreon obviously has like foul play, but like, I feel like you just get behind a sub, you calm mind, you bulk up, you do one of those, and like, it's kind of smooth sailing from there. Like, there's really not a lot that offers resistance, and I guess that is a little like niche and whatnot, but I just don't like that one move can like really kind of exploit this team and turn it on its head. But I totally get that. Like,
yeah, I see where you're coming from.
I get that this team like has a lot of good stuff, like Rotom Heat offensive, like specs looks crazy. Like, it just kind of shreds a lot of the concerns, but I just don't know how often that's gonna come. I guess that's the other thing. Like,
well, and I think one little thing is I really like how this team plays around Pex. Like, one of the most annoying things about playing Pex is that it's like, oh, I have a ground weakness. 3 levitate Pokemon, and none of them really overlap. And so it's always really annoying to use ground moves against TexasPex. Like, I think TexasPex is going to be really, really annoying.
Yeah.
Which is what it wants to be. 3-way tie next.
Oh my god. Yeah, this was the only tie, too. That's actually
that is actually crazy. This is my week 1 opponent.
Really? I'm a little scared for you. So the next team tied at 7.8 and what, like 8th, 9th? Somewhere around there?
Yeah, that's 9th. Or tied for 7th, I guess, technically.
It is the Trick Room team. Oh my god.
Maybe.
Yeah, Trick Room team, but I gotta shorten it.
I think the thing that strikes me when I look at this team is so many teams in this format I look at and I'm like, ooh, I really don't like your speed. I think you don't have a fast enough team. I'm not worried about that for this team.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, maybe a Trick Room team. I'm gonna go out on a limb
doubt it.
and say that this is not a Trick Room team. No, I think, where'd you put them? You put them 9th. Okay, so we're...
Yeah, 9th. Like, pretty middling. I like this team pretty okay. I think I like these Pokemon individually a lot, and I like that it has speed. I think my problem is just that this team, it lacks bulk. It really lacks bulk, and that could get really concerning if you don't outspeed something.
Yeah, I think you're right. Duh. I think you're right. Palma, to me, is like the star of the show of this team. I mean, I feel like it's supported beautifully.
I love Palmont.
Like,
I love Palmont.
Even, like, you'd expect, like, oh, Webb's Rabombe. I think Quiver Rabombe looks really good. Like,
or even just specs.
Yeah, like, you have screen support, which, honestly, I don't really like Morgrem, but, like...
Morgrem's not coming a whole lot, I don't think. And this is kind of a team with 6 Pokemon.
Really?
Because...
I mean, no, you're right.
Berserker, Ice Cube, Hatchram.
I like Berserker.
I like Berserker okay, but like I kind of lump them all together in a.
Oh yeah. It's like a
I have to think a
6-1.
little bit about Ice Q, and I have to think a little bit about Berserker. That's what I'm. I don't have to. I'm not leaking my strategies too much, but I am thinking about all these Pokemon.
Oh,
other
wait,
than
is this
Hatchrim,
your-
I'm not considering Hatchrim at all.
This is your week.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not gonna leak everything that I'm thinking about this team, but I do think that it's pretty top heavy, and that top heavy is pretty frail. But the Pokemon are just so good that it kind of supersedes that, and you can kind of play hyper offense in some cases, and it feels okay.
I think you kind of hit it perfectly with, like, this team is not, like, it's gonna have to play a lot of hyper offense. There's not really those defensive mons. Like, I like Noivern as a defensive pivot or a defensive wall, but first off, like, that's just not gonna work by itself. And, like, second off...
Yeah, it ain't bulky enough for that.
Yeah, second off, you're gonna... The other issue... Well, I don't know if it's an issue, but, like, I would have loved to seen, like, Rapid Spin, Zarina, like, offensive, kind of... But I don't really see, like, that kind of working, because you arguably... Palma and Salazzle kind of need that ground support, especially.
Yeah. Serena is the highest special defense Pokemon on the team, and it's not particularly close.
I forgot to even mention that. Yeah, no, the Spadef on this team is gross.
It's miserable.
And, I mean, you remove Cloyster, and Ice Cube is not going to be in that form, like, Berserker
and Serena as your defensive cores, that is brutal.
But I just think offensively this team is just so good. Like, I don't even think it needs webs to, like, be amazing, but, like, Palmont, Rabombe, Salazzle, to me is, like, one of the better, like, offensive trios that I've seen. So, I carried it
Absolutely.
a lot, but, the other kind of small thing is just, I would have loved to seen another rocker. Like, no
yeah, this
disrespect
team,
to
I mean,
Berserker,
hyper
but-
offense traditionally needs hazards, and this team is a little short on that.
Yeah.
Particularly from kind of the low tiers, where it's like, oh, I can throw out, like, I don't know, Cutie Fly, and get webs up, and I don't have to worry that most of my power budget is taken up by a Pokemon that was just there to get webs up.
Yeah.
Because now it's like, okay, Rabombi can get webs up, but that's 12 of your points.
Yeah. This team is another one of those high potential ones where, like, if everything goes right, like, this team, like, I see a world where this team is just really fantastic, but I also see a world where this team might struggle with, like, I don't know, like, just, if hyper offense doesn't work, don't really see what you fall back on, if that makes sense. I mean, there's obviously always
You
Shell
lose.
Smash
If you
Cloyster,
lose
but, like,
momentum, you lose.
yeah. Like, this team's interesting. It's a very interesting
Yeah.
team.
Yeah.
So
I like that someone decided to build it like this, and it's probably part of the reason why everyone has such bad speed, which I think is
Yeah.
fascinating. Like, that's just funny, I like that.
do you have any other thoughts?
I don't think I do, and that means we're moving on to the red land team.
The team that I'm versing.
Oh,
Uh,
good lord. That's a miserable week one, just because of the
Yeah.
player you have to go again.
Yeah, we get into their team, and before I even talk about the coach, and or not even the coach, but just the team and the ranking and whatnot. For me, this was the 4th ranked team. For you, it was the 3rd ranked team.
Yeah, it was the only one of my top 5 that did not end up in the overall top 5.
Oh, really? That very
Yeah.
fascinating. I was not as lucky. I have never beaten this team. I checked all the records. We've played each other in different draft leagues, like other than RUDL, and I have not beaten him once. And
Because wasn't you versus him one of the most memorable games that I've seen, like, that I didn't play in, was the double Final Gambit game?
it was with the Annihilate.
It was,
Oh
yeah.
my god.
Yeah, it was the double Final Gambit with Annihilate and then Vaporeon or something.
Yeah, felt humiliated.
It was horrible. That was miserable.
And
It
now
was also really funny.
and now I get him week 1. Yippee.
Yeah.
So, with all that being said, at 7.8, tied for 7th, is the California Krooks.
I don't know if I like this team when I actually look at it, but
yeah, me too.
That was part of why we had all of this lead up, is that it's like, I trust this coach at this point to make this work. Like, Porygon 2 is his, like, muse, basically.
Yeah, it's the mascot. Unofficial.
Not just his mascot, but also just he uses it all the time. And he uses it so well.
Yeah.
Glaceon, Haunter, Servine, Raidon. I think all of those are good Pokemon that will actually get value. Even Wartortle, I think, could probably do something. And it's like, I wouldn't think about it for a lot of people, but he probably can do it.
Yeah.
I think it's crazy good for 3-point, honestly.
I think it's a crazy second pick, but
I can't judge because I did some weird stuff too.
Yeah, we'll get to you. Overquill is probably one of my favorite mons of the format. Like, to me, it's top X. It's completely top X for me.
I think it's in that range, yeah.
It has probably the best offensive typing that you could ask for with this team. If
Swift Swimmer that I was thinking about is like,
really?
Oh yeah, that would be peak if you were like, not immediately thinking of it, but it's like, yeah, that's the one where it's like, I think that works really well with the Rain team as well. I completely forgot about him when I was scanning through it, but I do think it kind of sucks to not have Rain, and maybe this team, he's gonna do some crazy manual Rain nonsense.
Yeah,
but...
I mean, he has Wartortle with Rain Dish,
Yeah.
like, I totally see something like that. Look at this team, and, like, just because, again, like, we're both in a really fortunate position where, like, we've seen him battle. We kind of know what he's gonna do. Like, I looked at this team from, like, Porygon 2 as, like, the main guy, and saw kind of how he built around Porygon 2, and that is how I got to my conclusion of, like, top 5 coach, like, or top 5 team.
Yeah.
I think Overquill is just insane. I think the roles on this team are crazy good. Like, you have fast rocker, you have slow rocker, like tanky rocker, you have wish support with like 2 different mons, you have a great spinner. Like, in my opinion, I think Wartortle is like very solid for what, 3 points or 2 points with Terra. Like, I think it's very solid. Servine, honestly, I'm not really sure what it's gonna do, and I think that terrifies me a lot. Like, I'm gonna have to
yeah, Contrary is always like something you have to be scared of, especially if you're overly reliant on Defog, which a lot of these teams are. You gotta keep your eye out for Contrary, which there's only like 3 Pokemon, I think, that anyone drafted that has Contrary, but Servine's one of them.
Yep. Love Flamigo a ton. I think
I'm a big fan of that pick.
Yeah, like, Porygon 2 is obviously gonna struggle with like Ghost types and Steel types, and Flamigo's not gonna. I mean, it can hit Ghost types. I was completely just blanked for a second, but it definitely hits the Steel types very hard. It hits Rock types very hard. So I think from that perspective, like, I like Flamigo and Porygon 2's pairing.
And a programming note to those at home: Doug Trio cannot use Arena Trap. That's banned in this, which is why it's fairly affordable, because it doesn't get to do the thing that makes it good.
Fairly affordable.
It's still
crazy.
20. Yeah, it's still like 120 speed with pretty serviceable attack. It's still like a good revenge killer.
Yeah, I think it's a bit too expensive for me, but
it's a little too expensive for my taste as well. I looked at it a couple of times. I was like, can I make this work? And I think I can't for that price, but this team kind of doesn't. It operates in another realm than price.
Yeah. I feel like this team has so many mons that, like, I mean, I've coined this team as like the 6 NFVs teams, because like Eviolite doesn't even seem that bad for Rhydon. I'm pretty sure it's 6.
Yeah, it is 6. I had to count. Yeah, it's 6.
So I got 6 ice types. We got 6 NFVs. I wonder what's next. Really like a lot of these mons. I like Haunter as just like, I feel like Specs goes crazy on Haunter for this team. Like, I like the flexibility with this team at times.
And even Scarf, like, in a lot of cases. Like, it's a good Scarf speed tier. Like, a lot of these Pokemon are kind of like, they have some major flaw where you wouldn't want to use them, but you can totally cover up for that flaw. And this team will be built to cover up for those kinds of flaws and make those Pokemon actually work.
Yeah, I mean, with all that being said, like, we can pass around all of this praise, but like,
This is also a team that's reliant on Wartortle and nothing else to clear hazards.
Yeah, like, there's a reason why a coach put this at 18th. Like,
yeah.
I totally understand, like, the NFEs, like, could be an issue, and like, knockoff looks, I mean, Overquill is a switch in, but like,
Overquill and Florges can kind of switch into that.
Yeah.
And feel okay with it, but it's still not ideal.
Yeah, like, I have very mixed thoughts, and I think just because of the coach operating it, like, that's gonna be fine, right? Like, I don't think we both have concerns, but like, it's a very interesting team.
We can get to this one, which...
Oh my, I can't wait, because
so...
It's crazy.
No, go ahead. You tell us what this team is, first of all.
Alright, so at 7.8, tied for 7th, we have the Screaming Scovillains. And I mean, obviously I really love this team. You didn't hear what I put it at. I put it at number 3, technically, because of where I put myself.
Yeah.
And I like this team. Like, this team to me is, like, perfect. Like, or not perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect team, but the speed tiers are fantastic. Like, the sun on this team just seems crazy. I feel like Scovillain just kind of... I don't understand, like, I don't see what stops Scovillain.
Scovillain is not a Terra Captain.
Wait, what? Oh my god.
9 points, it can't even...
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, it's Alchemy and Provoke Pass.
Really? Why did I get that so wrong? But still, I really, even without Terra, I don't know why I put Terra there, but Scovillain is just, to me, a fantastic mon. With Chlorophyll, it can break and it can clean, and it does it both extremely well. Oricorio is a bit of like a, to me, I kind of get it, just as like, it hits a lot of the types that like Brute Bonnet and Scovillain struggle with, but like, Hurricane is like not the greatest. Is Hurricane the one that becomes half accuracy in Sun?
Yeah, sure is.
Yeah, I don't like that.
And that's kind of what it's relying on. You kind of have to use Air Slash otherwise, and that feels really bad.
Yeah, like, some of these mons, again, are, like, I mean, with every team there's some questionable mons, but, like, I also like a lot of the mons on this team. Like, Brute Bonnet is just, I feel like it's going to do fantastic. Like, I wouldn't say this mon is top X, but it is certainly close to it. I would say, like, top 20, maybe, like...
Massive Brute Bonnet praise.
Yeah, like, 11 points. I totally get, you know... I've used this one as a Terra Captain. I think it's extremely fun as a Terra Captain, but, like, it's also not a Terra Captain here, so...
yeah.
But it's also super strong. It's gonna have Sun. Like, Brute Bonnet, to me, just seems like a mon that just kind of just goes crazy. This team has rock support for it. Like, this team has a decent spinner. I feel like there's a lot of good with this team. Obviously, from where I put it, but like, and I'm a big Skuntank fan.
So I have it down in, technically 19th out of, which is pretty close to last. It's last apart from the bug team.
Yeah.
To take a brief detour to kind of explain where I'm coming from, I think that both Sun and Rain, at like the normal like mainstream tier level of Draft League in Gen 9, I think both Sun and Rain are viable. I think Sun is viable because you can have Torkoal out there, it rapid spins, it sets rocks. You can round 1 usually Great Tusk. Like if you can pick up Great Tusk round 1, you have your spinner, you have a rocker, you pick up Torkoal round 2, you signal that you're going Sun, then you pick up Walking Wake and like, I don't know, Raging Bolt or like either another Photosynthesis mon or something with Chlorophyll, like a Hisuian Lilligant or something. And then you have a bunch of Pokemon that don't really overlap too much in type. Obviously there's the Chlorophyll or the Fighting type overlap or whatever, but don't overlap too much in type. You have water type damage in the Sun, which feels really good because that's something that can kind of be an issue. You have Great Tusk, which gets boosted in the Sun. You're very fast. You hit really hard. You have hazard removal and you have hazard setting. There's a bunch of stuff that you get to do while being a Sun team. This format doesn't have those things. You don't have Torkoal, and you get Ninetales, and Ninetales is very bad. You don't get Great Tusk. The best, like, hard-hitting Pokemon you get is Brute Bonnet. Maybe I am just not treating Brute Bonnet
You're
Sucker Punch.
sleeping on Brute Bonnet, man.
Specifically Brute Bonnet Sucker Punch with the respect it deserves, because otherwise, it just gets hit by U-turn. And it just has a terrible time of things. Maybe I'm not giving Scovillain the respect it deserves as a Chlorophyll mon. Obviously, it outspeeds everything because of Chlorophyll and stuff like that. But at the same time, 108's not incredible attacking stats, and it folds to a light breeze because of its defensive stats. So that feels very bad, and I think you still have to invest in your speed, despite being a Chlorophyll user, because it is kind of low speed. So you can't really, like, cheater a little bit of damage in there like you can with some of the doubling things. And apart from that, it's like, what am I scared of having happen to me on this team? What am I afraid that Hitmontop's gonna do to me? What am I afraid that Ninetales is gonna do to me? I do not respect Ninetales in the slightest. I don't know what I'm scared of Gastrodon doing to me. Like, I think it kind of depends on, like, okay, do I think that I can design matchups to beat Brute Bonnet and Scovillain? If I think I can do that, I'm not afraid of anything else on this team. I don't have to respect anything else on this team. And that's, I think, and I guess Oricorio just because it has Quiver Dance, but at the same time, that's not a whole lot of threats to just design one Pokemon to beat, and if you can do that, you just win.
Yeah, honestly...
Like, that's kind of my thing when I'm looking at these people, like, at these rankings of it, where I'm like, what am I actually afraid of having happen to me? I don't respect Ninetales, I simply don't. It's not real, it's fake. Politoed, I kind of respect. Ninetales, I do not treat as a real Pokemon.
You know, honestly, I kind of forgot that Ninetales has 81. It only has 5 more special attack points than attack. Like,
but that's the thing, is like Ninetales is not like a passable attacking Pokemon that gets boosted to very good by its own sun. It's a bad attacking Pokemon that gets boosted to passable by the sun. Like, Ninetales Overheat in Sun is not scary.
Yeah.
Like, it's scary in the way that any Overheat in Sun can be, but like, your own Pokemon will probably have stronger Overheat in Sun than Ninetales will.
Yeah. With, like, it's crazy because I have this team at 2 and I'm, like, bad-mouthing it now, but, like, like, the difference between Torkoal and Ninetales is so big. I didn't like Ninetales as the first pick. I thought that was crazy. But, like, Ninetales, it doesn't have, like, a body press. It doesn't have, like, utility besides Memento. Like, it doesn't...
And then you can't set up Sun again for the rest of the game. And also, like your ability is, or excuse me, your item is really taxed because you want Boots to be able to switch in multiple times. You want Heat Rock to actually be able to get the sun up for longer, and you can't have both of them. And so either your Ninetales is going to be on a timer pretty significantly, therefore your sun is on a timer, or your Ninetales is going to not get sun up as consistently, and so your sun's going to be on a timer.
Yeah. I still, honestly, after this and hearing you out, would probably move it down from 2 or 3. But I'm still a big Brute Bonnet believer. Like, to be quite honest,
I maybe should be more of a Brute Bonnet believer. That might be my flaw, my Greek hero like downfall, is that I'm not enough of a believer in Brute Bonnet.
Like, U-turn is obviously a gigantic issue, but I feel like Hitmontop with Intimidate is like a very solid check to it. I feel like even Oricorio with a quad resistance, like...
Well, and that's the problem, is that if you're doing any of that, then you're getting your Brute Bonnet out of the battle, which is where you need it to be if it's going to do all the damage.
But I also kind of see it with this team as, like, Brute Bonnet as, like, a mon that just gets in. Like, let's say, like, I don't know, a mon dies, or, like, you click Memento on Skuntank, or you click Volt Switch with Probopass, and then you bring in Brute Bonnet for, like, a turn, and then it, even if there's no sun, like, Bandit is such a fun set, like, and you just click, like, Throat Chop, or you click, Loaded Dice Bullet Seed or something, and it just does damage. So that's how I kind of envisioned Brute Bonnet, and then Scovillains is like the cleaner, but like.
Well, and I guess my biggest concern is that it's just Brute Bonnet doesn't outspeed anything.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you're just right. Like,
And I'm not trying to like put down this team again.
No,
all of
no,
these
no,
teams
no,
are
no.
going to be based on how the player pilots them, and I think this team can succeed.
yeah,
But I don't know. I'm just like, I see it. I think of ways that I can shut down Brute Bonnet and Scovillain, and then that's it.
yeah.
And then I think of like what Pokemon I want to use to just stunt on the rest of the team.
I guess with me, the big reason why I put it high was like the Scovillain and like the Brute Bonnet and the Suncore. I felt
I
like
think they're good. I just wish there was something else there.
yeah,
And that's the thing, there just isn't in the draft anywhere. That's why I kind of think that Sun doesn't work. Like, first pick Ninetales doesn't really work, because there just isn't something else that can support those Pokemon.
or like even like a Shandy or something like that would have been really, really solid for this team. But
I was thinking, like, probably the best thing would be, like, just a hard-hitting fire type, like the Armarouge, the
yeah,
spoiler alerts you have. Like, when I was trying to, like, game out how a Sun team would work in its best state in this draft. But that's about the best I have. Like, this is pretty close to it, and I don't see it.
yeah. I also like Terra Probopass. I mean, I feel like that's crazy saying it, but like with the Sun, I
see
feel
that.
like it's a little bit more manageable, right, with the water resistance.
Yeah.
Like I do think that this team is like kind of putting it all in with this team. Like I am looking at highest potential with this team. Like like, and I'm also like a big Brute Bonnet believer. Like clearly,
Well, and this is a weird team to prep for on a week-to-week basis, because you can basically
Yes.
assume that Ninetales, Brute Bonnet, Scovillain are all coming, but past that, like, there's really no read on what else could be there. And you do have to play differently based on what all those Pokemon are going to be.
yeah. So I guess for me, I would probably lower this team down, which kind of stinks because I can't really do that right now. I've already made the graphics
fine.
too.
That's
so.
the thing, it's like, I've also, like, had some where I'm like, I'd probably lower this now, or I'd switch these around. I don't care. I'm standing by whatever I thought, like, last night.
Yeah. I still think this team is really good though. I just wouldn't. I feel like top 3 is kind of crazy, but I think that this is still like. I feel confident saying that this is going to be a top ranked team. Like but postseason, we'll have to see with that. All right, we're still in the 7-point category.
Yeah, it's the 6th overall,
Sixth
though.
overall
We're
team.
getting towards the top.
And we have New Jersey Jellicents. Sadly, is Jellicents not in the game, right?
I don't think Jellicent's in the game. It's certainly not in this draft. I would have seen it, I think. But I like Gyarados a lot. It's like probably my favorite. It's certainly my favorite draft archetype, the Intimidate Moxie Pokemon with this general speed tier. There's a handful of them in the game. And Gyarados is probably my favorite of them. I also had like a lot of formative memories playing Gyarados in draft very early on. So I like it a lot, and I do think it's top X, maybe even top 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just does a couple of things very well, and it's always something you kind of have to prepare for. I think this team, I don't know, feels awkward because I maybe feel like I over-tiered it a little, because I do think that there are only 6 Pokemon on this team. I don't respect Sceptile, so I should maybe respect more just because 120 speed is actually pretty good for this format. It's not good in a vacuum, but it's good in this format. And this team has good removal, and I kind of thought, like, I worried a little bit about how this team switched into stuff, but Diancie's really good for that.
Yeah.
I just do think this team is lacking a bit of bulk outside of Diancie, who you don't really want to be using just as a blob all the time, which you kind of have to now.
Yeah, it's
You
kind
need
of
to get rocked up, you need to be a blob, yeah. Go ahead.
it's kind of funny you bring up like defense and like forcing Diancie to kind of play like an uber tank for this team, because like when I look at this team, I'm like Gyarados just seems like a really good defensive mon for this team. Like
Yeah, honestly.
I feel like Intimidate Gyarados is probably gonna come most weeks, because like it's a ground immunity. It has a lot of good stuff about it. Like fighting resistance is like a big one, and fire resistance. Like,
well, and you do have like Thunder Wave and stuff, but I also think that Gyarados being able to do all of that, and this is from I've used like bold Gyarados before, like bold subtoxic Gyarados before.
Jeez.
But I think that Gyarados' use and why you pick it as a 16-point Pokemon is because you use Intimidate and you have all of those resistances so that you can click Dragon Dance and win the game.
Yeah, that's fair.
And it has the ability to do that. All of this is in place for it to have the capability to do that. I think it's awkward if Gyarados is forced out or just isn't finding the right opening or something like that, because then the rest of these Pokemon are kind of based around like, okay, what can I actually take hits with? Because Gyarados even, I mean, you can take hits sometimes. You can't take that many hits. It's not that bulky.
Yeah, I see what you mean for sure. The reason why I put it so high for me, this was 4th. I really liked Gyarados, Kilowattrel, Typhlosion, Hisui. Like, that is definitely the theme with me.
I really do like that trio.
I think offensively, like, teams that are really good offensively are gonna just shine. And
I guess my only real issue with that is that you need to keep hazards off.
Yes.
And you need to answer a couple of, like, types. Like, even just, like, people attacking with rock-type Pokemon.
Yeah, like...
gets, like, kinda dicey against this team.
This team kind of feels a little bit like a fluffy team. Like, like, I mean, we've said it before, but, like, Diancie is really gonna have to come, like, every week as, like, a defensive thing. Which,
I mean, you're probably stuck on, like, 5 of these Pokemon every week. Like, Revavroom might actually be the most, like, expendable for one of the others. And, I mean, Sceptile, you kind of don't get to Unburden with how this team is built. Like, maybe you bring Grookey and Sceptile and do Unburden nonsense, but someone's immediately going to know what you're doing as soon as you bring Grookey to a battle. And then you have 5 Pokemon, and it's all based around Sceptile getting the sweep down, which, I'm sorry, Sceptile's not that good at doing that. I've tried doing that with Sceptile, and it just doesn't work. Maybe in this format. And that's the thing, it's like, maybe because it is low tiers, things just won't hit as hard, and you'll be able to get through a little bit more of that. Like, Kilowattrel will take a hit or two, and it'll be good that it has that immunity and the like multiple immunities, and High Flow will be able to take a hit or two, or just outspeed stuff when it comes in. Like, you can Scarf outspeed and then just hit things really hard, and maybe all of that will work because it's low tier, and I'm kind of dicey about a lot of how things will work because of low tier, but I don't know.
Yeah, one, like, big thing with this team, I just wish there was another pivot besides really Diancie. Like, Diancie gets Baton Pass, and, like, Kilowattrel gets U-turn, Volt Switch. That's like...
Kilowattrel can pivot out, but nothing can pivot in and out.
Yeah. And, like, Toedscruel, I mean, I don't want to reveal Heat, but, like, there is a Toedscruel set that gets momentum, and I feel like it's fantastic.
But the problem is you also kind of need Rapid Spin, because otherwise you need to run Boots on 3 of your Pokemon, and that's untenable.
So, I think this team has a ton of potential, and also, like, Terra Avila Kasui is, like, a crime. Like, that mon... I don't think it works that well for this team, but, like, it could just have a game where, like, you Terra Fighting Body Press and it just picks up damage. Like, but it's also, I don't know, a commitment, and, like, you'd also have to subtract it for a Toedscruel or a Revavroom or a Diancie. Like, it kind of just fits a little awkwardly, but I still really like this team. I just think the offensive core is just crazy. I wish there was more support with it.
Like, sometimes you just hit things really hard and win, which feels good. It is 5th. It is top 5.
I did not.
And what's funny is no one ranked my team in the top 5.
Yeah. It's because, I mean, we said it, but, like, the teams are just, like, so together. And it's, but to our one and only former president of Rutgers Pokemon, the Konikoni Cats, Dennis.
Yeah. I want you to talk about my team. I want you to see. I want to know what you see when you look at this.
I see a lot. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I have such mixed thoughts about this team. Where'd I put you, like, 9th, right?
You put me 9th, yeah. So, like, 10th including yours, which middle of the pack.
Yeah. Like, I was very, I guess, whelmed was, like, the best way to put it, because I think you have great stuff. Like, I feel like Lucario, Slowbro, Galar, and, like, Bulky Gudra, with knockoff is, I think, could be really good. You have like so many roles, and I think that's really good. Like you have webs, you have spinner, you have rock support, you have a great steel type. Like I honestly really like Orthworm as a first pick. Like even though it's 9 points. To be clear,
if it wasn't clear by how we had talked before now, this order that they are on the list is the order that they were drafted in, which means that yes, I drafted all of my high tiers last. I drafted Orthworm first, and then all those other kind of mid tiers, and then I went looped back around. But continue.
I don't know. I'm kind of the reason why I put you like middle of the pack is I don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty with your team. There's a lot of, like I said, positives, but like I feel like your team is like very, I want to bring like 7-8 of these guys every match, but like you're only gonna bring 6, and I like Earthworm with hazards, and I like Mousehold in the end game, and I like Lucario as a breaker, and Slowpoke Ballard filling in a ton of roles, and hell, I like flirted with the idea in my head, but like Banded Torracat seems like a ton of fun.
I don't know if I'm gonna bring Torracat to anything. I do love it. I unironically enjoy it. And Torracat is my mascot. The Konikoni Cat is Torracat. Oh my
god, I didn't even put that together.
Yeah, it is my mascot pick, so that's part of why I grabbed it. But I do genuinely think I'm going to bring it once or twice. And even Cutiefly, I think I could bring once or twice. Like in a playoff setting, I think I could bring Torracat or Cutiefly, which is like the most that you can say about like a 1 or 2 point mon is that you could genuinely consider it in a playoff setting.
Like Gligar too, I think, I don't know, I feel
that
like
was a late edition. So
really?
To peel behind the curtain a little bit, the top 5 were picked out ahead of time, like well ahead of time. And then I had like a couple of different routes of where to go after that. Gligar was like a super late edition, like draft night. I plugged it in. I was looking at like what different stuff I thought I could make work, and I was like, oh, I could actually plug in Gligar here, and it actually does a ton for me. And I really like it on my team now. Again, I think I'm gonna bring it often, which as a 5 point mon, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, I think my biggest complaint is just like a personal one for me, because I really like Lantern. It's one of my favorite like lower tier Terras.
Yeah.
And I just love to see it as a Terra Captain because it has the 2 immunities, and you could just do some interesting things.
I think you're not prepared for what Granbull is about to do.
I'm sleeping completely on it. I have no idea what Terra Granbull does.
Granbull is... people are... I don't want to reveal too much of my own secrets, but Granbull, people are sleeping on it. That thing is actually disgusting. Same with Cryogon. I think I got...
Possibly on
that was part of the strategy, was getting X number of points of value out of like picking all my low tiers early. Like I think like I got 2 or 3 points of value out of Orthworm, and a couple points, like 1 or 2 points, maybe 3 points out of Mousehold. I think I got like 3 or 4 points of value out of Cryogonal. I have no idea how it was so low tiered, and being able to use it as a Terra Captain is really good. And then same with like Granbull and Lantern. I think both those I got a couple points. So I think I got like basically a high tier's worth of value out of all the low tiers that I have. And some of it's a matter of like I can only bring so many Pokemon to a battle, but I think I have like I don't know, 95, 100 points worth of Pokemon on this 85 point team.
Right.
And that feels real good.
I don't know, I need to see results with your team. I feel like a lot of other teams I can predict, but like this one is just, it's not all over the place in like a bad way. It's just there's a lot of pieces, and I can see how they fit together. I just need to see someone else put those pieces together, if that makes sense.
I think that's a fair assessment, yeah. I'm excited. I really like this team. I'm glad, like, to be, again, peeling behind the curtain, and I think that you kind of glossed over it, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on it a little bit. Goodra was something that I had on my board the entire time, where it's like, if I get this, I'm going to be really happy. Like, if I'm able to turn around and get this, I'm going to be happy. And yeah, Goodra is absolutely going to be something pretty crazy when we're getting into it.
I like Goodra too. I won't obviously try and speak too much, but it has a lot of really nice tools, and I think that is going to be very...
It's got every move.
Yeah, literally.
It's
and you
be
can
crazy.
run it physical, special, like, tons of item choices.
Yeah.
Moving on to a team, we have at 5.6, so big tier jump there between some 5.6. We have Gone Armarouge, who don't have their mascot because someone took it.
Someone took it. Could have been anyone. Yeah, we both had this at 5 on our whatever lists.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I really like it. This was a late edition. Meloetta was plugged into the team.
Yeah.
That's a really nice ad. I love Meloetta.
Really?
I think it's a really nice Pokemon. Was it before?
It was Basculegion female.
Basculegion female. Yeah, that's a better pick. It kind of ruins my original joke, which is that this team has like a bizarre amount of answers to weather.
Yes,
It has
I was
Rush
gonna
and
do that
Chlorophyll and Swift Swim
Yeah.
and Frost Lasso Snowcloak. It's weird that it had
It's
an
so
answer
funny.
to every weather for some reason. But I think even ignoring that as an aspect, I mean, Meloetta is a better Pokemon, I think, all around. And man, I have a weird team, but I like Alomomola a lot. I think Bellybolt is properly tiered, which feels weird as like a mid to high tier for Bellybolt, but I think it's properly tiered, which is a very good Pokemon.
Yeah.
Like it's decently blob sized, it can take hits pretty okay, and then it can also just hit really hard with Electromorphosis. I think a lot of these Pokemon fill a lot of different roles.
Yes.
Tinkaton's a good example of that, where you can either be like a fast annoyer or just hit really hard with Gigaton Hammer. And I think that's something where it's like, I have to accept that this is low tier and things have lower stats. So Gigaton Hammer, just gonna blow some stuff up. Talonflame like Brave Bird, just gonna blow some stuff up. Even like Meloetta moves, like Specs Meloetta or Scarf Meloetta. That's scary. There's some scary stuff here.
Okay, for me, this is the third team that was very defensive in my opinion. And if you look at where I put them, which we've said, like, this is the exception. I thought this team was put together extremely well. I feel like the offense is most certainly there. I liked Basculegion female just a little bit more, but I can't deny that Meloetta is, like, bad by any means. Like, you have a lot of mix-up with it. And I think the defensive core is like one of the best I've seen. Like, it's probably the best in this league, in my personal opinion. I think Tinkaton could do a lot. I feel like you don't even need to bring like the same. Like, this is a team where like it's pretty dynamic. Besides Charcadet, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're never gonna bring Charcadet, but I think everything else can come to battles.
Yeah, and like Talonflame can, I mean, there's just a lot of good pivoters with this team, and I mean, I think Terraleafeon might be a little bit crazy, but that might just be me. Terra Frostlass is definitely good. They really like the hazard support with this team. I think having both very solid rockers and spikers, a good spinner, a good defogger, I just think this team fills a lot of the boxes that you would want from a defensive-oriented team.
Yeah, I think my only real concern is I think the team is weirdly reliant on Sandslash.
Yes.
Not a great position to be in, but I think Sandslash can kind of fill that role. Again, it's against low tiers, and Sandslash can take a hit, it can spin, it can set up a rocks. Like, it's not horrible if you need to bring Sandslash most weeks.
Yeah.
But I think that doesn't feel great still.
Yeah, this team, to me, it's just really well-rounded. Like, it's definitely defense first, but I think it's gonna be good. I would love to hear what you have to say, because I am, at 5.5, we have Luxio's Livi Legion, and I'm very curious as to what you have to say first.
I feel like I'm going insane looking at this team, because I look at it and I see Toxtricity, I see Cobalion, I see Rhyperior, and I'm thinking, does this team have a ground problem? And I look at Sinistra, and I look at Braviary, and even Charizard to a degree, and I'm like, it can't possibly have a ground problem. But I still think it has a ground problem, and I feel like I'm going insane looking at it. Just aside from that, it's just Toxtricity is top X, absolutely. Cobalion's a very good Pokemon. It might be top X as well. I really like Cobalion. It's ridiculously flexible. I think that low tier is a format made for a Pokemon like Cobalion, where it's not really, you don't know what sauce it has until you remove a lot of the stuff that's like really destructive to it, and then you're like, okay, actually this Pokemon is a very good type, and its ability is pretty nice, and its stats are good, and its move pool is ridiculous. Like, this thing is actually like really nasty. Like, I like all the Pokemon that are picking. Hisui and Braviary is so good. Like, Tinted Lens with Esperwing, I think is the move name. That's really good. Sheer Force, just hitting really hard. And then Sinistra is the first pick. I was considering Sinistra, like, the entire time. That was something I had in the back of my head. I really like this Pokemon. And it's able to fill, like, a couple of different things that you need from it. I can find nitpicks with this team, particularly, again, I think this team's a little frail. I'm looking at it now, and oh my god, Charizard has the highest special defense in the team. It's horrifying. No. You probably need to bring something with Assault Vest every week, but there are plenty of Pokemon on this team that are comfortable running Assault Vest, so I don't think that's a huge problem. But in any case, this is a little bit of a 6 Pokemon team.
Yeah.
But I'm not, like, horribly upset about how that shakes out.
Alright, well, the biggest thing that I was looking at was the Spadef stat. Like, Charizard as your highest is crazy, and Sinistra does not want to run, like, it's going to be running Calm Mind probably, or, like, Rocky Helmet or something like that, so maybe it's not that big of a deal, but it'll have Heat Proof, like, maybe it won't be a big deal, but that just scares me. It just scares me a ton.
I'm trying to see if, like, Assault Vest Sinistra is even, like, viable. Not to mess with people, but, like, Scald, Machagacha, Shadow Ball, and, like, Leaf Storm, I guess? That's not good.
Yeah,
and you don't have your healing. That's not great.
Like, team doesn't, you know, I toss around flexibility a lot, but, like, to me, I don't know, maybe I'm just not seeing something, maybe, like, I don't really know what when Samurott can come to a match. Like, I feel like Sinistra, Braviary, Hisui, Zard, Persian, Cobalion, that's 5, right? And Rhyperior or Toxtricity is, like, that's probably gonna be the go-to. Just the special.
Yeah, I feel like you gotta take, like, the 5 double digits and then either Charizard or Persian.
Yeah, and the special just worries me. The other thing that worries me is hazards. Yeah. Both
can't set hazards well, and it does not have removal.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't say it here, but Cobalion, I'm pretty sure gets rocks. I don't know if it gets spikes, but like
it does get rocks. It does not get spikes.
I think you're right. Have some concerns. That is.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think I'm just enamored by Toxtricity Cobalion, which despite both having... And Toxtricity Cobalion surrounded by Pokemon that can make up for the ground weakness.
Yeah.
Because I really like those 2 Pokemon. But I do have a lot of issues.
Yeah.
I don't know. There are like 3 teams that I don't have any issues with in this. So.
Oh wait, we already... Oh no, we covered... Where's your number... Oh, yeah.
The number 3 is... it's the... Crocodiles.
Yeah.
Like, to also pull behind the curtain, I only have ranked them tier-wise, like A, B, C, D. I originally had an S tier, but there was, like, nothing that I felt belonged in S tier. I put the original number 1, both of our number 1 in S tier originally, and then I kind of moved it around a little bit, but, like, this team, despite being my number 4, is also, like, in B tier. Like, I'm not blown away by it. I just kind of, like, something has to be number 4, and I'm not blown away by really anything, and I just like these Pokemon a lot, even if the synergy is kind of bad and it's missing a lot of roles.
I should pull back the curtain a little for me, too, because with my tiers, like, I'm pretty sure I had, like, 10 teams in C tier, so, like, when I say, like, a lot of the league is mid, like, that is not a hyperbole to me.
Which will make it exciting when everyone plays against each other.
Yeah.
But we'll go to the number 2 first. Let's start with that one.
Number 2. So, coming in at second with an average of 4.25, a little bit of a jump, but it's nothing you'll see for first place, or nothing compared to what you'll see first place, is a decent coach. I mean, not the greatest, not the worst. She's fine at best, maybe. You know, I mean, who goes with the blue color for their team when they're called the Cincinnati Willows? At second, it's my team.
Yeah,
Cincinnati
Willows. I guess I'll talk about your team.
Yeah, I want to hear your thoughts.
Straight off the bat, Hydrapple and Armarouge are both not even top X. I think they're both top 5. And I think that's where most of this team's strength comes from. And you might not think that. You might think I'm overrating two of these Pokemon. I genuinely think they're both top 5. They're ridiculously strong. And I think that carries how I feel a lot about this team, because I'm kind of iffy on Iron Thorns. I don't dislike it, but I think there's a lot of stuff that's a little, like, bulkier in that range that I'd kind of like. Something more on the, like, offensive, something more in the Hydrapple vein, maybe faster than that, but, like, kind of bulky offense type beat. I think Iron Thorns, my issue with Iron Thorns is that it feels bad if you don't run Dragon Dance on it, and so it feels bad a lot of the time, but I really like how you rounded out the draft. I like Galarian Weezing a lot. That's a good Pokemon. I was considering it quite a bit. 3 abilities, all of them really good, all of them really different. They make it into a completely different Pokemon, each of those cases, and that's really scary. I like Rotom Fan quite a bit in this format. I think Rotom Fan is, like, underrated just because it's a meme.
Me too.
But, like, Electric Flying is good. And even if you have literally no ability, it's fine. I like a lot of the other little stuff, like Quagstar gives you rocks, and that's nice. Caparajah. I think Caparajah's not good, but with Terra, I'm curious how you're going to make it work, because I've tried to make Caparajah work before, and it doesn't work in, like, a normal draft, because it's just too weak. But in a low tier with Terra, I'm interested in seeing it. And then Sneasel, that's scary. Like, Sneasel, people underrate, like, Sneasel as, like, a fast damage dealer, I think, in some cases. And this team is pretty slow. But it makes up for that a little bit by having, like, Dragon Dance and Weak Armor, and I don't know, like this team a lot, just mostly off the back of those 2 Pokemon, the Hydrapple and Armarouge. They're just really good.
Hey, it's just Kayla here, Editor Kayla. I didn't really talk about my team too much. I just went over the picks. Dennis can attest to that. So I'm just gonna redo most of this section. There are some parts I'm gonna keep in, obviously, but I want to redo most of this section. So this was ranked as the 2nd best team. I ranked this as the 2nd best team. I think Dennis put this up here. Pretty much everyone put this up here as either 1 or 2, somewhere in the top 5. I really like this team. I think there's a lot of good from it. Hydrapple and Armarouge is just such a strong offensive core. I think Iron Thorns is also really, really good. 2 of them are setup threats. All 3 of them can break. All 3 of them can... Well, no, not Hydrapple. Armarouge and Iron Thorns can play cleaner roles. Iron Thorns has hazards. It does have spikes. It does have stealth rocks. It has pivoting. Quagsire is just a menace. It's gonna shut down a ton of setup mons, but I also have a ton of disruption. I have a ton of knockoff. I have a ton of haze and dragon tail. And the really only bad part about this team is the speed tiers. I know they're atrocious. I haven't had a team with this bad speed tiers in a while. Sneasel, I'm not gonna lie, really a savior. It really does make up for the speed tiers because it's fast. It's going to take advantage of the 100s. Especially the 100s that are going to speed creep this team. It's going to be fine if I run like Adamant Sneasel for a lot of matches. And then this team pretty much has everything that you need, and especially quality in the roles. For example, Weezing is one of the best fairy types. It's also one of the best fairy walls. It's one of the best just cleric options. Besides not getting wished, it has all types of status moves, coverage moves. Komala gets spin, it gets wished, it gets U-turn, knock. A lot of these mons that I drafted just have a ton of tools. And that's not even counting for the Terras. Caparajah Terra is gonna go crazy. Sneasel Terra is gonna go crazy. I don't mind, or no, I do mind not having a dark special mon. What I really don't mind is not having a physical fighting mon, just because I think Caparajah and Sneasel can both Terra fighting, and just it doesn't matter then. It just doesn't matter. So I think both of those combined are really good. The bad parts about this team I already mentioned. Really bad speed tiers. I'm going to be seeing a lot of Adamant, a lot of Modest users. against me. Hazard stacking might become a problem with this team just because Weezing and Komala are my only forms of removal, and while Weezing is pretty consistent, Komala won't be. So this team's greatest strength is going to be getting up hazards and then just getting chip damage. And if I can't clear away my own hazards, then I feel like this team can get overrun pretty easily. That being said, Armarouge is going to be running boots most of the time, and so that shouldn't be too much of an issue. And a lot of mods are going to be having a recovery, like Hydrapple, Quagsire, Weezing gets Pain Split, Komala gets Wish, so I don't think it will be that bad of a problem, but it seems a little squishy when you get past the walls, and Rotom Fan is my biggest Spidef That is something I'm not happy with, so we're going to have to see. I don't think this team will finish as the second best team or even the first best team, because that's just how my teams have been, but I think top 5 is definitely possible. So I'm going to turn it back to Kayla and Dennis. Thank you if you kept watching this far, and alright, so the number 1 team by far, in not even my opinion,
both of our straight up number 1s, and
yeah,
everybody had it in their top 4.
Average of 2, like big jump from 4.25, and it is the appropriately named Steamy Stunfisks.
It's Steamy, alright. Yeah, I had the California Krooks as my 3rd team, and there are some, like, what's it called? Like, just a bundle of stuff. There's so much stuff, and I think all of these mons contribute. I really do not see a single one of these mons that I don't think can contribute.
Yeah, that's exactly. And I think by far the first 2 picks are like, I don't think you could get better than that. Like, they are just such a great duo of mons. Like, they just hit the weaknesses perfectly for each other, and they're just fantastic breakers. And like, I feel like because of that, I mean, Gardevoir is not the best like Wishmon, but I could totally see Gardevoir playing different roles just because, oh, you're expecting like this insane Gardevoir, like let me just switch it up and bring Knock or something. And like, I don't know, I could see Gardevoir playing really different roles just because of like how good it is in this core of mons. I think what you said was exactly perfect. Like, every one of these mons can come and do something insane. Like, Abomasnow has, you know, Aurora Veil, Golurk, Rocks, hits hard, Quaxwell is a spinner, Electros is just kind of like coil and setup-ish, and also a pivot. Inteleon hits hard. I'm always a fan of 2 waters, especially like one special or physical that hits hard and one that's more tanky, and that's done here. Bastiodon does rely a lot on Terra, but like,
for 3 points, like, I think like Bastiodon, I have a hard time saying it's the best 3-point mon, but I think I could really make that case, and I think I can make the case that Wigglytuff is the best 2-point mon. I am very high on Wigglytuff.
I am not very high on Wigglytuff.
You don't know what big Wigglytuff can do. That thing is actually kind of terrifying. It just has like a lot of moves.
Yeah.
It just does like a crazy amount of moves. I mean, it can rock.
But Bastiodon is like,
yeah,
like Terra with it. I mean, the biggest thing is just like, throughout the whole draft for a lot of people was just steals. So like, Bastiodon is a fine steal type for this meta, especially with Terra. So I like that. I like Quillfish Asui, like Dark Poison.
Well, I like that this team isn't like a slave to like the basic type cores. Like,
yeah.
It finds a way to be good against like ice and grass and rock and stuff like that without having like a good steel type.
Yeah.
And it finds a way to like make use of like not having any dragon type and still like able to resist a lot of like waters and electrics and grasses and stuff. Like, this team doesn't struggle badly with any particular type or matchup or mon that it can match up against. And part of that is just that Gardevoir and Blaze Tauros, I think, are just good Pokemon in general. And then part of it is just, there's so much here. Like, it's so much to process when you're trying to, like, go into a game where you're like, okay, do I want to bring Brick Break or Psychic Fangs to break through Aurora Veil? Because that could seriously be there. But it could also, Abomasnow could just not come and you could just be down a move.
Yeah.
Like, that tier of thing where it's just, there's so much going on here.
I mean, it's insane. Like, I don't know, this team, I mean, you kind of just said it perfectly, like, this team just has so much. Like, it's so hard on the eyes. Like, there's just so much you have to be prepping for, and, like, not many teams are going to have enough prep to even deal with Gardevoir and Tauros Blaze by themselves. So, Terra Braviary is also just incredible. Like, I feel like almost every pick here is a slam dunk, home run, all of that. Like, the only one I don't like is Wigglytuff, but like, that's not really a big deal.
It's also 2 points.
Yeah, it's
I really do like Wigglytuff.
Alright.
Yeah, 2 points out of your 85-point budget that are bad. Most people have, like, I mean, a lot of people have half of that on, like, a stupid mascot. So.
But this team is just clearly, like, it's funny, because, like, the system I was using to rank all my teams was, like, pretty much how I drafted. So that's why, like, the teams that I rated high were, like, also had great offensive cores and, like, whatnot, because that was what I was doing. To see this team, like, just get A's and A pluses in, like, every category, and, like, I had final choice of, like, what that rating was, and it just was clearly, like, the best team. Like, even without my standard, like, everyone else sees it too. So, I don't have any other words, like, this is just a phenomenal team.
Yeah. I don't know. Again, it's our number one for a reason, and both of us kind of had it in our, like, S tier-ish type thing. Like, I see issues, mostly just hazard removal, but, I mean, there are so many teams here that struggle with hazard removal. Like, we've said that so many times over the course of this draft. Like, and this was after a lot of people prioritized getting a rapid spin. Like,
it's just, like, not to, like, pile on, but, like, having such a good offensive core can, like, really diminish a lot of, like, the weaknesses, because you have to put a lot into those offensive mons, and it becomes hard. So, to me, that's where this team is just, like, phenomenal, and it's just...
Yeah. And
like,
despite having offensive mons, it doesn't struggle to switch into things, which is the most important thing. Like, we've seen so many teams where it's like, oh, we love these offensive mons, but, like, what does it do if, like, this move comes out? And it's like, okay, we have Quiflish, you have Electros, you have Golurk with all its immunities, and even Abomasnow can eat a couple of things. Like, it's those do that without sacrificing, like, your really high-tier offensive mons. Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah, that's about it, I think, right? Like... Unless you have any other thoughts.
Yeah, that's all of them. I'm excited to get into battles. I'm sure that things are going to change. Like, I'm going to change, like, post-draft stars if I'm doing them instead of just, like, battle reviews or anything from this, because that takes into account, like, player skill and stuff. But, yeah, I don't know. It's pretty cool. I'm excited.
Awesome. Me too, man.
I'm excited. Hell.
Hopefully, you know, we both do fine and we both, you know, make playoffs and whatnot, but I would, or not, I mean, everyone makes playoffs, but, like, top bracket. I feel like this is, like, the most excited I've been for one of these draft leagues. Like, there's just so many talented coaches that we already have, and, I mean, some of these people I don't even know, and they're, like, in my top 10. Like, I'm very excited to just kind of see how it all plays out, and just to see, like, who's the best team, who's not the best team, and what changes
and, like, what Pokemon end up popping off, like, what gets on the leaderboards and stuff.
I mean, we had Revavroom last year, like...
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I think we'll get even weirder stuff, because Revavroom is now, like, a top tier in this, like...
Yeah, and I don't imagine it's gonna, you know, get a ton of kills this year, but...
Yeah. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be real fun.
Yeah, we got our week ones already to prepare for. I hope, you know, we didn't give too much information about anybody's matchup in particular. I mean, we said a ton of shit. So, like...
Yeah. I was gonna say, we've been talking for, like, almost 3 hours, so...
Yeah.
Anybody who got through all of this and
Crazy.
got extra information out of it, good for you.
Yeah. I'm probably, hopefully, gonna do timestamps so that, like, you know, everyone can see where the team was and, like, the info on it, but, thanks.
To say about it, yeah.
If you've watched all of this, you're crazy. Yeah. That's about it. Do you have any parting words for our coaches?
No.
You know what? That's a fantastic answer, because I don't either. So we will see you guys, I guess, start of next week for the match recaps. So all of you guys enjoy school, make sure to balance it and all that, and yeah, see you guys later. Have a good one.